you're the GM, so from like a storytelling standpoint, I imagine like I would have a lot to ask in like just a storytelling conversation, but I was just more so curious, what were some of your inspirations or concepts for the SMP as it was like conceived, I guess?
Yeah. Well, aside from kind of the obvious points of inspiration that were sprinkled throughout the story, kind of core concepts, name drops, that kind of thing. The basis for this SMP, like the overarching story, is kind of loosely inspired by one of the, I guess, homebrewed worlds that I've been kind of cooking in my own time, where much of the same kind of core concepts applies, where there is a land ruled by dragons, and pretty much the whole hierarchy of that world revolves around sort of a draconic ancestry. So I kind of took that and in a way that would better suit an SMP and a Minecraft environment. Sprinkled a little bit of extra lore bits to help accommodate for some of the other mods that we're using, also like player ideas as well, and obviously taking some bits and pieces off of media that I hold very close to my heart. And I just kind of kept throwing stuff at the wall and seeing what stuck, and thankfully most of it did.
All right, makes sense. I guess like I'm gonna do. I wrote the questions down in a specific order, but I'll do them out of order. Then I guess I'll just acknowledge, like, the SMP was full of references to Destiny, Final Fantasy.
Yeah.
Were there any other references that were like hidden that no one or like only a couple people picked up on?
Not nearly as explicitly as those two. I will certainly say that much. There were obviously like a couple of like themings regarding like characters and like stuff like that were more subtle in their inspirations. An example of that is the fact that Aeth is in a very important way linked to Micaiah from Fire Emblem, specifically Radiant Dawn. And if anybody knows anything about that character, then it makes a whole lot more sense. But aside from that, it was primarily Final Fantasy, and with a hint of sort of Destiny lore drops that many older Destiny players would be very well acquainted with. And that certainly made for some interesting moments.
Yeah. No, I can see that. You didn't see it obviously, but like when you said the tie between Aeth and the Fire Emblem character, I was not a Fire Emblem girly, unfortunately. I wanted to get into it, and I didn't get the opportunity.
Yeah.
But that makes sense. Because like the Final Fantasy one was expected. The Destiny references I should have seen coming when I encountered them, and I didn't. And so that was primarily why, if you ever like saw or heard me groan during those moments, that would be why. Because I would forget that they were there until like, it was pretty much too late to like be like, oh, this is Destiny. It would be like, oh, fuck.
Yeah, pretty much.
But yeah, no, that doesn't surprise me because, I maintain that there is no such thing as an original idea. We're all inspired by everything that we've ever intaked as creators. So it doesn't surprise me, but it is still fascinating to get that little bit of insight. Kind of on the topic of characters though, I kind of have like two different paths I can take, I guess. I'll take this one. What drove the naming process for the Elder Dragons and also their scions?
Right, yeah, so the Elder Dragons, well, for half of them at least, in particular Skorael and Taresh are taken directly off of 14's Dragon Speak, and are quite literal translations of Draconic. So to be specific, Skorael translates to wicked punishment, and Taresh translates to enchanted spirit. Those are where those two names came from. In terms of Zephyrus, that has just kind of been a fantasy name that I've had in my sort of archives that I pick out every now and then when it suits it. Obviously, coming from the word Zephyr, making them a dragon of the skies, that kind of ties in. And in terms of making the Ender Dragon named Ire, obviously Ire is, depending on where you kind of take that inspiration from, can mean a lot of different things. In D&D, Ire was one of a close scion of the Platinum Dragon Bahamut. In Destiny, it's the one planet or moon that's like very closely associated with the Traveler, and like sort of there's paracausal energy. So for me, I kind of took those two inspirations and just kind of fit it for the Ender Dragon as the first progenitor of magic. For a lot of the scions that you experienced or you encountered, some of them I also took off of sort of Draconic or Dragon Speak. The exception for that is Fearkrag, which is actually a Magic the Gathering creature, a dragon as well, and the full name of the card is Fearkrag Cunning Instigator. And his whole gimmick as a creature card is goading, and forcing opponents' creatures to attack other players, which, if you think about that and how he was portrayed in the SMP, also makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, I just pulled up that card just on Scryfall as you were talking. I was like, okay.
Yeah.
It is amusing to me that it is Battle for Baldur's Gate, but nah.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Okay, that's interesting. I kind of figured that was the case for Taresh and Skorael, because of how different their names were compared to Io and Zephyrus, right?
I intended for sort of the elders to be portrayed as very obvious sort of counterparts in a way, with Skorael and Taresh having their naming convention so similar, being pitted against each other, and then Zephyrus being sort of the outlier, right? The third aspect that doesn't quite fit into the half and half balance, right? That mystical third option. And so, that's why I went with that, and sort of very heavily played into the fact that while the 3, later on 4, kept the balance together, most of that balance is just instigated by the 2 stronger of the elders.
Okay. Makes sense. Um. Oh God, where am I? I got lost. The
Rude.
inattentive ADHD took over for a moment. I guess then, like in the topic of characters as well, like for a personal, like out of character standpoint, and then also in character, I had my own like motives to ask about Rhei. But is there a specific inspiration or concept for that character? Because having an off-screen character like that, like, is, I imagine, from your perspective, a lot different than my perspective of having a character who's got no screen time, right?
There wasn't really any like direct inspirations for Rhei as an off-screen character. Rather it was a way to for me to explore like Aeth's and like her previous experiences of being humanized. After all, she was basically raised by a dragon for 150 years, despite not having a full dragon form anyway. So for me it was a way to explore like what would have Aeth's first sort of human experiences been like, and how did she sort of react to both the coming and the going of characters like Rhei and of Gaia, right? Very clearly they had a massive impact on her, you know, both good and bad when they perished. And you know, and as the SMP went on, people realized that the reason Aeth is kind of so mystical and sort of aloof is because she kind of locks herself away from human interaction because she's worried of the same thing happening, of being shown those sort of human emotions and experiencing them only to lose them suddenly. You know, she's no stranger to cycles and things repeating itself. She's a dragon. So meeting all of the adventurers and getting that experience again, it was, you know, it was something she needed, but also something she feared, because she was worried of the same sort of events happening.
Which makes sense.
Yeah. I guess as like from a player standpoint, it was a way to give context and to sort of give reason to the way that Aeth is the way that she is.
Which makes sense. You have to have, I guess, especially in a character-based emergent storytelling context, right? You need that sort of thing. You need I would consider that like a storytelling anchor point, I guess.
Yeah.
So that's curious. I find that fascinating because I personally have never written a character in the same vein as Aeth, so I find that perspective interesting. And then I guess kind of like expanding on that, but also even further than that, were there any like twists in general? It can be about Aeth or the dragons, or really anything that you had in mind that you didn't actually get to execute in the storytelling?
Yeah, so that's the fun part. I'm gonna be honest, I had contingencies for Aeth to not stick around for the entire thing. I actually had like a secondary NPC prepared in case something happened to Aeth very early on. Which you know, it's good that she managed to stick around until the end. But I did have like those contingencies. I guess like the kind of things that I had planned is obviously for Ace to fall to Virgil is a big one, like very early on. Another thing that I had planned was like depending on how everyone went about the Dragonstorm, was to have Ace basically consume a lethal dose of like dragon's blood, and like hold back the storm while everyone else goes to the end. And so when everyone returned after doing everything, she would be nowhere to be found except a smaller silver dragon that was not immediately aggressive. I would be waiting for them and then would just leave, which would be basically her turning into a full dragon. That was an idea that could very much have happened, and I'm glad it didn't.
Okay. That makes sense. Like from a GM standpoint, what I understand of GMing is like you have to have like a million different ideas, and those ideas can be executed or thrown away on a dime. So it doesn't surprise me necessarily. Yeah,
right. I also had ideas for like, you know, if everyone was active like on the final day, I had commands and I had ideas for spawning a bunch of like dragons that would be automatically tamed to Queenie, as her a way of like actually controlling dragons, as is like the initial plot for Tarash. And having those dragons be hostile to everyone else except her. That was a very real sort of plot point that I had ready to go if it came to it. No, I had a lot that I could have done. Just depending on which direction you guys decided to go.
Alright, that makes a lot of sense. So I've got last two questions that are like less specific, I guess, and I will do them out of order that I normally do them in. It's either gonna be simple or it's gonna be hard. I don't know which one for you, but any final thoughts for the players?
Oh, for the players. Look, this was my first time doing anything of this caliber. I've played DM before. I've ran stories and roleplays before. But nothing of like this size and in this time frame. So a lot of the sort of quick decisions planning that I would normally have weeks or months to plan out, I kind of had to work with on the fly, like in a day. And so like, you know, as much as people were learning and like fumbling their way around the story that I had cultivated and also like the world that they were with, I was fumbling around trying to pave the path and to make sure that everything went as smoothly as it could have gone. So I guess the only thing that I hope for the players is that I hope you had fun. And as rough as things might have gone in some patches, I hope that everyone finished and got out of it feeling like that, feeling like for the most part they had enjoyed their time, you know, and had fun over the last month. That's as much as I could hope for, right? I know it wasn't perfect, and I know that there were a couple of rough spots and sort of low points. I am very aware of that. I take those responsibilities. But if for most of the players, the good outweighed the low points, then that is enough for me.
Hell yeah! And if it's any consolation, even though I did not finish the ordeal, I did have a lot of fun. I don't look back on the time that I did spend in the SMP, or the time I spent watching the SMP from Gemma's perspective, and think to myself, I didn't have fun. I did have fun, and I guess like my hope as well as that other people had fun, as much fun as they can, playing Minecraft with dragons.
Yeah, exactly. At the end of the day, people were playing Minecraft with dragons, and as long as people had fun and felt like they enjoyed their time at the end of it, that is as much as I could possibly hope for out of this whole event.
Hell yeah. All right. So that is all of my questions. It's pretty much it, yeah.
Nice.
33 minutes.